And one of the programs we launched last year was to have deeper conversations about the show after many of our matinees, and we bring in different folks who can speak to different themes and aspects of the show. And I'm really thrilled to welcome Rabbi Stephanie Bernstein from Temple Road of Shalom and Reverend Stephen Edmondson from St. Thomas Episcopal Church. Thank you both for being here.
Sure.
I talk a lot about, often I'm drawn to theater, which is telling very old stories in very new ways. That there's something ancient about a lot of the stories that we tell here at First Stage. I actually believe it's in Harvard too, told in a very specific way. But that, and in this play, we go into the relative past, not too far back, but and in that are given an idea of how to deal with the future. And it was such an interesting structure for me that way, that the play could very easily start in today and go backwards, but it wants to propel a little bit into the future and how we think about the future and how we ultimately both draw in our lineage and change our future. And there was something very biblical about that. I mean, so much of the Bible, of course, is about lineage and passing down, and who begot who, and how we understand how to move forward.
But it's also about finding one's way back. I mean, that there was so much journeying and traveling here, but for me it was about Andrew finding his way back to his father, to his family. And I was reminded of the concept in Judaism of teshuvah, which is our concept of atonement, but it's from the Hebrew word shuv, which means to move, to travel. You've gotten off the path and you have to get back on that path, and there was so much traveling that had to be done before there could be this reconciliation back to the path. And to be part of this messy family. I mean, most families are messy. I was a therapist before I was a rabbi. I didn't know anybody whose family is not messy. Maybe not to the extent that this is writ large messiness. But we need to know this stuff. It's part of who we are.
A mess again. The story that then happens is the story of the Tower of Babel, where everybody becomes alienated. Everybody speaks a different language, much like everyone, and they become alienated from one another. And then God shifts to plan B, and it's the most interesting segue in the Bible, I think. God has been narrating the story has been narrating all these generations, and falls into a mess, the flood falls into a mess, and then suddenly it zooms into a very tight close-up on Abraham. And God says, I'm going to call Abraham. And Abraham's going to be faithful. He's going to trust. That's his one virtue is trust. And God says, I'm going to bless the world through you. And that to me is a part of what I saw in the play was Andrew and the last Gabriel weren't going to change the world because they read Diderot, but rather just small act of faithfulness. Andrew taking the time to find his dad calling back, his dad willing to share something of the past.